Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the MCC live stream series. And we are going to take our very first look in this series at GarageBand, which is Apple's music making software. Runs great on the iPad, runs fantastically well on the Mac as well. So yeah, we're going to take a look at that. Introductions. With me is, as always, Mr. David Kirtland. And David is an Apple professional learning specialist and a good friend and a bit of a guru. And I think music is your specialist chosen subject, is it not, David?
It definitely is today.
You're creative across the board, aren't you? Me, I'm Richard Child. I'm the education manager at MCC Digital. We are an Apple authorized education specialist. And we're really pleased to bring this series, and a couple more to go. But yeah, music today for the first time. So this is an activity that is out of Apple's Everyone Can Create music book, and it's just full of resources, really well presented, really well laid out. It's free. We'll tell you where to get it towards the end of this stream. And we're going to look at GarageBand, and I believe a certain Mr. Timberlake is going to be involved in this afternoon's activities. Over to you, David.
Great, thank you, Richard. Yes, so just before we do jump into GarageBand, Richard's just mentioned the Everyone Can Create books there. So I'm just going to have a quick glance at these because there are some really useful, nice resources in there, and it's just worth pointing out where they are because they're not necessarily as obvious as they perhaps could be. So I'm in the Everyone Can Create music book. And at the moment, I'm looking at chapter 2, which is about song construction. So if we just jump in here, this tells us a little bit about how songs are quite often put together in terms of the structure, the verse, the chorus, etc. And there's a lovely exercise here for activity 2, analysing Can't Stop the Feeling, one of Justin Timberlake's tracks. And just skipping on here, we'll have a look at this in GarageBand in a moment, but it's explaining the structure of a song. So there's lots of information here. But I just want to highlight on page 20, that little blue download button is not the most obvious thing to find there. But on page 20, we can download the GarageBand track for Can't Stop the Feeling, and we're going to have a look at that in a moment. So we just download it straight from the iBook into GarageBand on the iPad. So let's have our first look at GarageBand. So there it is. And just like anything else, we press plus to create a new project. And GarageBand is an amazing app on the iPad. It is the one that teachers tend to be a little bit nervous of because firstly it is the music one, so we kind of assume we need a little bit of music noise there, and it does help, but there's plenty of things we can do with GarageBand without so much of a musical background. And the other aspect of it is GarageBand is huge. There are so many things we can do with it, and I'm looking at the live instruments here, which we're going to explore next week. But there's so many things on here where we can start playing some of the instruments and start recording and plugging guitars in and doing all sorts of things. That's the tracks option there up at the top that gives us the access to these instruments. But we're going to come at it from another angle today, and we're going to look at the live loops, which gives us another set of resources and a very different way of working in GarageBand. But this lets us put pieces together using pre-made little bits of music. And again, there's lots of templates here. There's 2 pages of different templates. And we're going to come back and have a look at these in a moment. We'll start with a new one. But before we do that, I'm going to go back to my songs and let's just bring up that Justin Timberlake track and we can see how this kind of works. So give that a second to load. But we can see we've got this grid layout now, and these are kind of jigsaw pieces, little fragments of music that loop together. So within each of those squares, those blue squares, we've got a little piece of music that we can play at the same time and build up our piece and kind of behave like a bit like a DJ and make this a live performance of these pre-made bits of music. Now, those circles within the blue squares, those are audio waveforms. They're not normally in a circle, they're normally linear, and that's just a graphic representation of sound. But we've got them here in a circle just because they loop round and they go round and round forever. You may see odd ones which aren't in a circle. If we look at the right-hand side, we've got a couple of straight ones. They're one-hit samples. They just play through and they don't keep looping round. But we've got our loops there. In our grid, if we're looking horizontally across, so starting at the left-hand side and working across, that's the duration, that's the time of our song. And we can actually see at the bottom there, we've got these labeled for us quite nicely with intro, verse 1A, verse 1B, pre-chorus, chorus, etc. That's the time throughout the song. Vertically, we've got our instruments down the left-hand side, And this is just the different layers of the music. So we build up music just like we build a cake, and we have one layer at the bottom, which might be our bass. Then on top of that, we could add our guitar in, or our drums and our pianos and our vocals, and just keep building up the different layers of music. So that's why we've got this kind of grid view. To work with these loops now, all we have to do is tap one, and it will play the loop for us over and over again. So I'm going to go to my third column, because it's a first column with a few parts of the song in there. And I'm just going to tap that bass loop. And that's just going to keep playing round now. And we can see we've got this kind of almost clock face spinning round, showing us where we are in that loop. So we know when it's got to 3/4 of the way about now, and when we're back to the beginning, and it will start that loop again. If I tap that loop again, it doesn't stop straight away. It waits till it gets to an appropriate point. Our music is very mathematical. It kind of divides things up into 2s, 4s, 6s and 8s, depending on what we're doing. So it will tend to kind of work in quarters or halves or 3/4 before it will either stop or wait till it starts the next loop joining in. So if I want to try how things work together, I could have that bass loop going. Just below that, I have a bass drum. If I want that to start and join in, if I tap it now, I don't have to tap it exactly at the right time. It will start at an appropriate point. So I'll wait till it gets nearly round, and then I'll tap it again. So I'll tap it now. Let's add some hand claps in. Add some snares in. And we can keep building up the different layers of music. And when we want to take them out, we just tap them again, and it'll go back to the ones we've left in there. I'm going to press stop at the top, the square button there, and it just stops the whole thing playing there. At the bottom of that column, I have a little upward pointing arrow. If I tap that, it will automatically play the whole column for me in one go. And again, I can drop things out. And you can bring them back in as and when we do. And this is lovely for the children, because there's a song they probably know. If it's anything like My House, we've seen Trolls a lot with the children here, so they will know this song really quite well. And they can start deconstructing it. They can start seeing how it works and play around with it, and kind of understanding that it is all those layers that are put together. So let's just have a look. So if I go on to, say, the chorus. Jump onto a verse. I might want to go to a breakdown and go to the outro in the middle. So we could drop out the vocals and start building it back up. And I don't have to necessarily stick with loops which are within the same column. I might think, while we've got this going down, I'll add that bass in. Let's add a guitar in as well. Let's put some more drums in. Let's do a break and go back to a full chorus. So we can play around with that linear structure and make a really long version of it and kind of build things up. And a lot of music is like we talk about story mountains in literacy, how we kind of start a story and we build it up and something happens and then it drops down. So then the excitement builds up again. Music's exactly the same. We can talk about the layers, build it up, add that excitement, drop it down, and then build it up even more maybe for the chorus. And there's so much we can play around with that. So a couple more things on just the interface on GarageBand before we go and have a go at building our own song. So I've got my layout here, but with my instruments down the left-hand side, if I just grab that little line at the side and just pull it out, I've now got kind of the beginnings of a mixing desk. So if I decide the bass should be louder, I can just turn up the bass, I'll turn it down, or increase the volumes of the drums. I have a headphone button at the side. which is just a solo. So if I temporarily, while I'm listening to it, just want to hear that part I'm on here, I've got the bass drum selected there. If I want to just hear what the bass drum sounds like, I can solo it with the headphones there. If I want to mute it so I can listen to everything else, I can turn off the sound there, just like a real mixing desk. So that's just there by pulling out this side there with all the instruments on. I also, if I've got a track selected and I press up in the top, I've got my little fader icon, just that little square with a picture of faders, just like a mixing desk. And this gives me the same kind of thing, but there's a lot more detail now. So just on that one track I've got highlighted, the bass guitar, I've now got my track volume, just like we saw in the mixer, but I've got my options to pan it left and right, so I can switch between the different speakers. I've got some effects. I've got an EQ, so I can increase the treble or the bass, or I've got a compressor, which is about the difference between the loud and the quiet parts. Or I've got a few effects. I've got reverb and echo as well there. So I can add things like that into individual parts. We'll have a look at that in a moment when we do our own song. And we just turn that on and off there. A very cool one is where it says FX next to it, and that brings up our FX panel at the bottom. So if I just start this, let's start our chorus going. Let's have a quick look at some of these effects, because there's some really nice ones here. So, and in here we've got our DJ skill, and we can have some really nice effects. The filter on the left-hand side is great, because this gives us those effects for making it sound like it's coming through the wall, or maybe even sounding like headphones. So, and also I can attach that to the gyroscope in the iPad. So just by tapping that little icon at the top left corner of that filter, it now responds to the tilt movements of my iPad. So as I move my iPad around, you see it's moving that filter. So let's just try that. Which is just very cool. So you've got that kind of live performance element to the DJ inside of it as well. And that's all there. It's all built in by default. So we can play around with this Justin Timberlake track for a long time. There's so many things we can try with it. But let's go back and let's start building up our own song now. So I'm going to press that little paper icon in the corner. Let's go back to our documents and let's create a new song. So we're going to work with these live loops. And as I say, we've got lots of templates, which are pre-made songs, a bit like the Justin Timberlake track there, but pre-made different styles. I'm going to go for a blank new one. I've got exactly the same layout here, but I've only got one row in my grid so far because there's nothing else there. But over in the top corner, GarageBand gives you lots of these pre-made bits of music, these jigsaw pieces, they're Apple loops. And in the top corner is the Apple Loop logo. And here we are. Let me go down to the top of our list here. And this is a huge list. There's all sorts of loops on here. And we can work our way through these. You'll notice at the top it says get more Apple loops. I've got a little notification, so there's probably an update or some new ones. So you can always jump on here and download expansion packs, and they're forever adding content to some of these as well. So it does keep growing. Now, there's lots of these, so let's think about how we can filter and find what we're looking for. So along the top here, I have instruments, genres, and descriptors. So if I think, well, actually, I'm going to build up my track, and I'm just going to look at bass guitars, that will now filter those loops and just show me all the bass loops. And there's still quite a lot of loops there. So I can add a second level of filtering, or you could do this instead of, but I've got genres as well. So I could filter it and just show me the country music or the jazz loops that are in here, or the orchestral loops. Some of mine are grayed out because I've already done that pre-filter saying just show me the bass ones. So if I click on funk, for example, this is now just showing me the list of bass loops, which will be categorized as funk, which makes finding things and working within a style a lot easier. And if I want to audition these, we just tap one. And you tap it again just to stop. So let's stick with these funk ones for the moment, and let's start building up a bit of a piece. So let's find one we like. Let's see what these are, these Glitter Knights funk. Okay, that's good. I quite like that. It tells me it's 2 bars long, but really I don't need to worry about that because GarageBand does all that magic behind the scenes to make all these loops work together. So whether they're 2 bars long, whether they're 4 bars long, whether they're different tempos or in different keys, GarageBand works all that out for us and makes them fit together. We need to use our ears, and we need to work with the children to develop their listening skills to think, well, actually, do these styles fit together? Does it sound good? Do we like what we hear, and does it achieve what we want to do? But the technical bits of it, GarageBand does that for us. So let's stick with that. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm just going to pull it from that list over to my first square. And there it is. It's just over there. It's put that bass guitar icon. I can tap it, and we can see it looping around, just like those files we saw before. Let's go back to our loops. So that will be the first section. This is the beginnings of my song. Actually, while we're here, that was Glitter Knights Funk Bass 1, but we've got Bass 2, Bass 3 in there. So we could use these. These are probably similar loops, but a slightly different pattern. And these are great that there's a few of each one, a few variations, because that helps us build up the duration of a song. So let's try number 2. Okay, so that's similar, but a little bit different at the end. So let's use that, and I'm going to put that next to it. So I've now got the progression of my song. I've got section 1 and section 2. Let's try number 3. Yeah, let's have that one over there in number 3. So we've started building up our bass track for the first sections of our song. Now, let's go and add another layer. Now, the one kind of gotcha that people don't often realize is that they might go now and find different loops for a guitar, but a lot of them are grayed out. Just remember to press that little cross, and it just resets our filters. So I can go back now and say, let's just see the guitars, but let's go back to genre and let's find funk again. And we've got lots of guitar parts we could put in there. Let's scroll down, let's see what we like. And there's all sorts we can put in here. Let's try one of the neon light ones. Yeah, let's go with that. So I'm going to grab that and just put it underneath now. So this will play at the same time as that first bass loop. Let's see what our column now is sounding like together. That's sounding okay. Let's go back to our loops, and we've got 6 versions of this. So let's try another one. Yeah, let's use that. We'll put that in the second column, and we'll find one for the third. Yeah, and that one will do there. So we've got the beginnings of our song. So we've got our bass and our guitar in. Let's go and see if we can find some drums. So let's reset our filters. And I've got all drums and I've got kits. All drums will include things like percussion, like maracas and tambourines and things as well. So I'm happy with that. Let's have genre. See what we find. Funk again. And what do we have here? Electric funk beat. Now that's quite nice. That's quite a full sounding drum loop. So I think I'll use that for my third section, where the song's building up. Let's just check it sounds okay. Yeah, that's working. And let's find something that's not quite so complicated, a simpler drum loop now for the beginning. Let's try these throwback ones. Yeah, they've got quite a nice feel to them. Let's use that one. And I think we'll have that one for the second section. Let's try them. Okay, that's coming along. Okay, so let's build this up a bit more. Now, I might want to add some synth parts in here and add a little bit of a solo, but I can hear my backing track there. I can hear the individual loops when we audition them here, but I can hear the loops and audition them at the same time just to make sure they really do fit. So just looking at my loops, let's go for a synth solo, and we'll stick with a funk genre there. And again, there's quite a lot here for us to try. Okay, so let's see how these start to work together. So I'm going to just start that loop going. Go back to my loops. So we can audition them while it's playing. Let's try one of these. I'm quite liking that one. So while it's still playing, we'll add that to our song, and let's add it in. Yeah, that's sounding good. Anything else we want to add in here? Let's go back to our loops. maybe we could go to our instruments and find a vocal. Some nice space-related ones there. We might use those in a moment. Oh, let's add that one in. If there's anything else. Oh, I like that. Let's have that. That's good. That's doing quite well there. Let's see what else there is for this section. And I think we will add some of these Apollo ones in. Let's put a countdown in. Okay, so we're starting to get the beginnings of this building up. Let's see what we're sounding like. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff. Okay, that's okay, and we can play around with that, just like we did that with the Justin Timberlake track, and rearrange it live. So, but we've got something there that's starting to work. It's starting to sound okay. So let's just pull back our settings here. I'm going to tap on that synth and go back to our effects. Not the effects. Let's go to the mixer effects and see what we can adjust just for that loop here. So let's play that, and I'm going to solo it. So we're just hearing that synthesizer part. And I could adjust the treble or the bass. But I think a little bit of echo might work on this. Let's see if it works with the rest of the song, so I'll unsolo it. What about the effects? Okay, and we can play around with this and keep making our song longer and putting more and more content in and different sections. But I think for now, we've got enough of our song there to say this is coming together okay. And it's sounding all right. So we need to perform this now. So I can play this live by just tapping this, but if I want to use it for anything, I need to go up to my controls at the top of the screen and hit that record button. And this enables me to save this performance and then do something else with it. So I'm going to hit record. It will give us a 4-bar counting before we start going with it. So I'm going to hit record. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. Okay, we'll stop there. We could keep going on and on and on with that. So now we've got that recording, I can go back to the beginning and play back that performance. I am going to just point out there are two modes in here. We're in performance mode at the moment where we can tap on these. Just down in the bottom corner is that little square with the pen. And you'll find that when we spend more time with it, you will switch between performance and edit mode. All that means now is that each of these, I can think, actually, that's in the wrong column, and I could move it to another one. Because normally when we press them, they play. But now this stops them playing and lets me edit them. Plus, I can tap on it, and I have that delete option. So if I put a loop in and I've changed my mind, just tap on it and delete it. And then when you're ready to perform, just turn that off and we're back into that normal performance mode. So we've got our recording. Let's press the document button in the top corner, and there it is, song 33 on mine there. So I'm going to select that. And this has a slightly different way of working with the share options as a lot of the apps. But if I select it now, we can see along the bottom I have share and duplicate, etc., etc. So I am going to share this. And sharing music files is a bit more involved than sharing a lot of documents because there's more considerations here. So I've got three options. Before I go any further, it says, do I want to say this is a song, a ringtone, or a project? Now, any of this we can send anywhere. So we could send it off to Shobi or Google Classroom or anything like that, so we can pull things back and carry on. So maybe this is a piece of work that I want to carry on next week. So in which case I would send that as a project and I could pull that back on any iPad and then carry on working with it from there. Maybe as a teacher, I've done a bit of a backing track project and I'm giving it to the children to carry on and develop further. So in which case I would share the project there. But I finished with this for the moment. So I'm going to export this as a song, which is an audio file. If I particularly want this as a ringtone, I have that option there as well. If I need it when Richard rings me, that's where I know what I've got, my GarageBand track there. So I'm going to send this as a song, which is a standard audio file. And it says, well, hang on a minute, what quality audio do we want? From uncompressed audio at the bottom, a WAV file or an AIFF. I'm going to go with one of the compressed one just because I don't need the space at the moment, but high quality is good enough for what I do. So let's share. And we see we get the usual type of share options there. I can add it to an iMessage and send it to one of my friends. I could airdrop it around the classroom. I've got these options there. Look, Book Creator's there. I could put an audio file straight into Book Creator or Dropbox or there's Shobi further on the list. But I'm going to look down and I've got the Open In, another application option here, which gives me more details there. So I'm going to open in. And before it goes any further, it converts it into a full audio file. So we've selected the quality. This is now going through that performance we've just done. And it's converting all that information, that data of that performance into a final audio file. And this usually takes a second or two while it works through the audio there. There we go, it's just about done. So there we are, it's back up again. And now we should have a few more options on here. And the one I'm looking for is iMovie, because this is great now if we're working on a bigger project. A few weeks ago, we looked at how we could use iMovie to create documentaries and lots of videos with information in there. So if we have spent some time with our little mini production company with a few children creating the content for a film, we could have a couple of children writing the soundtrack as well, or they could all do everything. So I can now send this straight to iMovie. It gives me a big long list of all my iMovie projects on my iPad, or I can create a brand new one where it starts with my audio file and I just work with iMovie with the music in place. I've got a space one here, which we started in the school just before lockdown. So let's go with that one, which is movie 51. And there we go. I've got my images and my titles on there. And I've got my music along the bottom. So let's see what that's looking like. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. And then I can spend a bit of time readjusting some of these regions to make sure that things are timed and fit nicely with it as well. But it gives you that whole kind of suite where we can do the video and we can do the music and put the two together, which is amazing, really, that we can do all that on the iPad with these apps. I think we're there.
Absolutely incredible, as always, David. And, you know, just looking at the control that you've got in GarageBand, it just reminds me of what we looked at in previous weeks in apps like Keynote. And, you know, you can change the pan, it's get slightly left or right of the microphone. All that flexibility, using the iPad gyro to apply effects. Who thought of that? That's just amazing, isn't it? So, you know, I happen to have a copy of the national curriculum for music, and it says, you know, understand and explore how music is created, produced, and communicated. It says compose music and use technology appropriately. Do all this on GarageBand, on the iPad, and as we just saw, bounce that into your iMovie documentary. Just incredible. What a fantastic example of that whole connected Apple creative ecosystem, for want of a better word. So that's just amazing. Thank you. And I saw your head bopping. My foot was tapping. You just get carried away with that, can't you? And GarageBand, of course, works fine on an iPhone. So, if you're on a train or a long journey or a flight or whatever, Lord knows when we'll be taking those again, you can actually just start jamming on your phone. And that's just amazing. So there is tons in GarageBand. My personal favorite is they have there's a pack of vintage drum machines you can download. I was on eBay the other day and saw an 808 drum machine for £4,000, and it's free in GarageBand, and you can start laying down those beats. It's amazing. So that must have whetted your appetite. More to learn on the Apple Teacher Program, which is the online CPD program from Apple. And you just sign up with your iTunes account, your Apple ID, or your Apple Music account. All of those, they'll get you onto that Apple Teacher Program. You complete some modules. You will earn a certificate, an Apple Teacher badge. Print that out, pop that on your classroom wall, and just go take a look. It's there, and it's free. The big piece we've looked at today is from the Everyone Can Create program from Apple. That's a series of books. There's one for music, which we've had a look at today. There's also ones for video, photography, and drawing. There are also teacher guides, and in fact, there is now an early years or early learners teacher guide as well. So something for everybody, great quality materials. And as we saw, we can actually download that Justin Timberlake track into GarageBand and see the whole song construction there, and it's left to right, up to down, all the layers. And as we saw, we can play around with that to our heart's content. The task for the children in that activity is they make their own remix of that song. And you tell me a primary school child that wouldn't enjoy doing that. Can't stop the feeling. Fantastic. If you can't stop the feeling and you're feeling creative, then what you need is the MCC MyLearn MacBook Pro Creative Studio for teachers. And that is a bundle there of the very latest MacBook Pro, which of course will run GarageBand. In fact, it includes GarageBand. So you're up and running with your music on that. We've got the Podcast Studio Kit from Samson with the headphones. David and I are sporting those today for the first time because it's music. We want to hear that music really clearly. And the USB microphones we're using to give good quality audio. If you're creating resources, particularly in this age of distance learning, then this is the kit that will help you just put that finish onto your materials that you'll be sharing with your students. And we've got a green screen in there as well. So if you want to transport yourself when you're making a video to accompany your first track, you can put yourself anywhere in the world using the magic of green screen and iMovie. All of that is available to teachers on an MCC MyLearn subscription, which is just £59 a month. So do drop us a line if that is something you want to talk to us about. We're back next week, staying on the musical theme. David, little hint.
We're going to have a look at some of the other things that we can do in GarageBand and look at progression and start exploring some of those instruments and how we might start playing it and think about style and different instruments and building up a song from kind of live playing.
Fantastic. And that's something you know all about, being the architect of the iPad Band project. We'll maybe talk about that next week. Thank you so much. It is 4:33. That's not bad. And we do hope you can join us again next week. And we look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye from me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Richard.